We must consider that we shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us.
When the first English settlers came to this continent, they came here to be the model, to be the example, to be the shining city on a hill. And so American exceptionalism is as religious and as American as apple pie.
The city on a hill reference that comes from Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount was a vision for what America could become.
We don't have a king as a sovereign. We, the people, are the sovereign. Our rights come from God, our Creator, and therefore, we, the people, retain all of our rights.
America's foundation was from the start intended to be a biblical vision of society and life. Most of our founding fathers were not themselves theologians, but they thought from a Christian worldview.
America was founded by people seeking religious freedom, but the atheist philosophy of Karl Marx has become quite popular today among millions of Americans.
Karl Marx himself identified Christianity as one of the chief impediments to the establishment of globalized workers of the world uniting. Christianity has been consistently identified as one of those threats. And the reason is, if you're advancing a philosophy that requires people to be perpetually and irrepressibly oppressed and victimized, then a message that says, no matter where you come from, there's hope in Jesus Christ. If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. The core of Christianity is hope. Any ideology or philosophy, especially the theology of Christianity that gives people hope, is diametrically opposed to an atheistic or an agnostic Marxist worldview.
There's been a multi-pronged attack on God in America from within America, primarily by cultural Marxists. Perhaps the biggest engine of change in America occurred in the schools. In the 1930s, Columbia professor and committed skeptic John Dewey set America's schools on a trajectory of unbelief.
John Dewey basically believed that we were empty vessels. The whole idea of a blank slate, that human beings are not born with any type of nature, certainly not the image of God. They hated that idea, completely dispensed with it. And so where does human nature come from then? So they believe that human nature is inculcated in children by their parents. And so their idea is we circumvent the parents. We let the state raise the children and teach the children because they're a blank slate. And they will become the citizens that we create them to be. So government becomes for the true progressive, becomes the laboratory that inculcates children with the nature that they ought to have. So institutions within society create individuals.
But Ben Shapiro says that 4 years at an American university is really a 4-year attack on America and God. And that's the truth. Okay, so in the classroom, if you dare express your Christianity, you better be pretty confident and have a pretty strong backbone, because you will be shouted down, if not failed.
Beginning in the mid-20th century, the Supreme Court contributed to the problem in a significant way through a series of school prayer type cases, effectively banning God from the schools. Historically, the First Amendment meant no national denomination, no Church of America like the Church of England. But the High Court reinterpreted the First Amendment to mean strict separation of church and state.
It's one thing to say the government shouldn't be engaging in religious expression, but it's certainly another to say that Americans need to have a public square that has been washed free of any taint of religion. That's not what our understanding of religious freedom has been historically, and I think it's not what it should be.
America's churches were once viewed as oases of good for society, but in the recent coronavirus pandemic, we've seen a bias against churches, at least by some.
I think it just shows how unreasonable, how irrational, how discriminatory when people were allowed to go to the liquor store, to a dispensary for marijuana, they're allowed to go to the grocery store, but they're not allowed to go even in their cars to a church service. So it became readily apparent that what was happening was governors, mayors, county commissioners clearly had a disrespect for not only religious freedom, but for churches in particular.
When you look at the debate that's going with COVID, we're saying, what are essential services? Well, in the minds of a lot of governors, churches are not essential.
I mean, all people have to do is look at them saying, the experts even saying, well, you can't sing at church, but oh yeah, we're the protest, we're okay with that because that's important. And which belies an understanding that they have that the church is not important, that religious freedom is not important.
I think the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals said it really well. They overturned what the governor of Kentucky was doing, and that was the mayor of Louisville and all those other things that were going. And they said, we're not going to let the Bill of Rights sleep during this pandemic. And that's exactly right, because we are a nation of laws, not of men.
In Chicago, you had cars actually towed because they thought they were going to the church. Some of those were just even neighborhood cars.
It was to a church of really refugees who had left communist nations. And here they are in America being treated exactly the way they were under communist governments. It is crazy to see what happened.
The attack on God in modern America has special meaning to those who grew up in atheist countries, such as Harry Mihet, who today fights for Christian liberties through Liberty Counsel.
In modern America today, I see some of the same things that I saw growing up as a child in communist Romania beginning to happen here in the land of the free. Maybe not to the same extent, not yet, but I see that we as a society and a culture are becoming very intolerant of genuine faith in the marketplace and especially in the public schools. The communists required us to go to school on Sunday. We missed schools on Sunday, we went to church, but there was a price to pay for that because on Monday when we would come back, we would have these school-wide assemblies and our principal would invite all of the kids that had missed school the day before to step out into the front of the school-wide assembly and would then proceed to berate us and belittle us and insult us and to invite our friends and colleagues to do the same thing. This was a weekly occurrence. This was not a isolated event or incident. This was a weekly occurrence designed to intimidate and to harass followers of Jesus Christ.
I'm sure you're familiar with the book that Cleon Skousen wrote, was published in 1958, called The Naked Communist. That book had near its appendix 45 current communist goals. And so this is back, late 1950s. Those goals were read into the Congressional Record in 1963. And if you read through those goals, much of them have been accomplished, and one was to take over a political party.
In his 1958 book, Skousen lists some of the goals of the communists regarding religion, like infiltrating the churches and replacing the Bible with social religion, or eliminating prayer at school.
If we look at America in 1963, when they were read into the record, and look at America today, what do we see? And I think we see the implementation of those communist goals. And yes, it's cultural Marxism, and it's all about destroying our society.
There's not a nation in history that has survived forever. It has to be decided from generation to generation to generation. So we were started very much on a God basis. There were flawed people, they made mistakes, no question about it, but their heart was to pursue God and His principles. And if we pursue that ourselves, we'll be a safe nation. If we don't, we're going to be in trouble.